Hey guys, I'm going to make this really quick because this video actually used to have a really bloated intro for no reason. Basically, I canceled this video and then I ended up making my Ultimate Flash Sonic Rose Tinted, which was my first Rose Tinted. This one was supposed to be my first one. It used to be on my other channel. I deleted it because it was a canceled video and I don't want weird odds and ends on that channel, so I'm re-uploading it here. I do plan to cover this game in the future, but I don't know when. That's all. Enjoy. The Game Boy Advance wasn't the first system I ever played, but it was the first system I could call my own. I ended up having 35 games for the thing, mostly Pokemon and Mario titles. I tended to stick to only a few games that I would play, and ignore the other ones I had. My Game Boy was bought at a Target sometime close to 2004 in a bundle visually similar to the Donkey Kong one you see here, but it came with 3 games instead. One of which was Tarzan: Return of the Jungle. Tarzan on the N64 was the first game I ever played, and its lush environments blew my mind as a kid, so I knew I had to have the Game Boy that came with the Tarzan game. Obviously, it was the very first thing I played, but what about the other two? Well, I rarely, if ever, played them after trying them the first time. I want to go over all of them in due time, but today I want to focus on the second game I ever tried, Monster Force. There's a good chance you've never heard of this game. Googling it brings up no relevant results until you start adding video game or GBA to your search queries. And even then, information is sparse. Most of my info regarding this game and its history came from Wikipedia, Moby Games, and Unseen64. Believe it or not, but I actually had to submit information for this myself because it's so undocumented. This thing is relatively unknown. Well, what the heck is this? Knowing what else came with my Game Boy Advance, I have this sneaking suspicion bundles like this were put together for Target to clear unsold stock. Does that mean it's bad? Not necessarily. After all, this thing was made by Digital Eclipse and published by Universal Interactive, who were responsible for the Spyro GBA trilogy, and cross-referencing the credits for those, a lot of the same people worked on this. So that's a good start, and it shows promise. So what happened? Universal Interactive is that Universal. You know what they have? This. Yeah, this game has direct relation to the Universal Monsters cinematic universe, but it has even stronger relation to Monster Force? Yeah, Monster Force, which was a 13-episode cartoon series from 1994. Outside of the name, I can't find any direct similarities. So basically, Monster Force the game is loosely inspired by Universal Monsters cinematic universe that spans over 40 years of film and more. Yeah, I'm not watching all this. So since I ended up playing as Drac, I watched Dracula. It's good. I rarely ever watch movies in the first place, so getting me to watch a black and white movie is a pretty hard sell, but I ended up loving this a lot. Bela Lugosi absolutely steals the show anytime he's on screen, and it's easy to see why his performance here became such a pop culture legend.
Now that you have learned what you have learned, it would be well for you to return to your own country.
I prefer to remain and protect those whom you would destroy.
You are too late. My blood now flows through your veins.
Despite how interesting movies like this are, they will age as technology evolves over the years. And I think this cinematic universe started to get left in the dust when movies like Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Nightmare on Elm Street started to make the rounds. Now, Monster Force came out in 2002, long after this golden era of monster movies Universal had crafted. So I think this somewhat lack of interest over the years led to this game being doomed from the start from a marketing standpoint. There's actually a canceled PlayStation version of this game, which you're seeing footage of right now. Now, judging from what you've seen, what type of game would you assume the released GBA version to be? Yeah, that's right, a Gauntlet clone. Now, Gauntlet is great, and we didn't really get anything for this series on GBA that's actually worth talking about. So this sounds like a winner, right? It has a vast property with tons of inspiration to draw from, and fills a niche that wasn't met on the Game Boy Advance.
What could possibly go wrong?
A lot. A lot could go wrong. So immediately upon starting the game, you'll see, yeah, that is not the logo. What happened here? This doesn't make any sense either because even the PS1 beta footage uses the correct logo. Off to a great start already, I see. Immediately after that, you're introduced to your first cutscene, which looks pretty good. These are nice and stylized with a nice little film grain effect. And the character select screen that follows it has this 3D effect that makes it look as if it is casting shadows on the projector screen. Hey, it's almost as if talented people worked on this. Each character feels unique and has their own set of stats, animations, and sound effects, despite all of them following the same blueprint. This is nice because it gives each individual character a better sense of identity, meaning that you should pick the character that you feel the most comfortable with, as you're going to be spending a lot of time with them in the next few hours. Immediately once you start playing the game, you'll notice that all of the attacks kind of feel off. It's very hard to describe, but when I think about how they would come out, I imagine them coming out along a bit of a plus sign, with each attack coming out on each one of the points when I'm facing that direction. But they don't actually do that. For attacks that come out along the X-axis, they come out a little bit above where I would expect them to, yet when I launch attacks across the Y-axis, they come out exactly where I think they would. This is a bit disorientating and it takes some getting used to. In addition to that, there's no way to pivot on the spot while charging a force shot. You are locked in the last direction you were facing, which can cause problems. This is also a bit difficult to explain, but because the GBA's D-pad is technically only 4 concrete directions, and this is an 8-directional shooter, when you want to get those other 4 directions that fall in between up, down, left, and right, you have to be pressing 2 parts of the D-pad at once. And if you remove your finger even slightly before one direction over the other, you'll change direction when you stop, causing you to potentially shoot in the wrong direction and charge a force shot to be launched in the wrong direction. This is bad because the game works on a combo system where if you kill weaker enemies with a single force shot, they will drop more atoms. But if you misaim your shots, that completely throws it off, and this isn't even your fault sometimes. The game will also try to tell you about something called triple shot, and while I was able to do this pretty easily while playing as Wolfie, while playing as Frank and Drac, I wasn't able to do this at all. I'm confused why this tutorial prompt even pops up while playing as them. Each new area will introduce one new enemy type exclusive to that area. For the first area, the Graveyard, they will introduce the Ghost enemy type. They're one-hit kills that kamikaze you. Don't get close to them. You can also dash by holding the A button. This has problems. When you bump into a wall, you'll play a short animation of you actually bumping into the wall and be locked in place, similar to Bob. The problem here is that this animation goes against the rest of the game's design. You need to dash in order to move fast to pick up atoms, but it's far too easy to enter this animation, which only serves to waste time. Atoms and the game's power-ups also don't stay on the screen very long, so this is very detrimental to the player. The game's power-ups are called tools. These can be used at your discretion, but the game will generally give them to you when they are needed. Don't feel like you need to save these up. At the end of every level, you'll get access to Igor's shop. Now, I made the mistake of thinking I could sell items here, which you can't do. The game will tell you about being able to drop items in the store, but really what you're doing is deleting them out of your inventory, which I don't think the game explains very well. Oh, but don't worry, because immediately upon starting the next level, they tell you that doing the same thing while in a level will let you drop an item. I know how this might make sense because of the way it was introduced, but this is actually player hostile. See, when you drop an item in a shop, that's it, it's gone. You don't get any kind of warning. However, when you drop an item during a level, that item will appear where you're standing, meaning that you have an opportunity to recollect it again if you did on accident. Introducing a mechanic like this in an environment where the player is not allowed to make mistakes is not good. And this could have been avoided if this message was moved to the level before it. Each area of the game will only consist of 2 basic levels, a trial stage and then a boss fight. You will generally lose the trial stage your first time. They are almost always mazes with a very strict time limit, so you can't go slow and take your time. However, you can replay any and all previously played stages at your leisure, so this isn't that big of a deal. And admittedly, I do like the challenge of these. The first boss is okay. He's basically just a big enemy with quite a bit of health. The problem is they reuse him multiple times. As you clear each level, you'll get graded on your performance. Admittedly, I wasn't doing too hot and kept getting bronze. I think the maximum rank is Crystal, but I am unsure. The next two areas are the village and the garden. Both of these are good and add new elements to the game, but they're not really worth looking at in depth as they are generally good levels and don't really have a lot of problems. Unlike Atlantis, the fourth area of the game. So as I said before, the game's attacks are kind of odd and they come out a bit weird. Yeah, this is when you really start to notice it more. See, Atlantis introduces these really obnoxious frog enemies. The problem with these frog enemies is that they're constantly moving up and down, even when standing still, meaning your attacks still have the chance to miss them even when shooting at point blank range. They're extremely annoying. If hitting them wasn't hard enough, they also jump around very frequently and fire homing attacks at you. These do a decent amount of damage, but that's not the real problem with them. You know that homing attack I mentioned? Yeah, every once in a while that will have poison attached to it and there's no tell for this. This is dumb. These enemies are easily some of the most obnoxious in the game and were responsible for a lot of my deaths. But they're nothing compared to this room. This room is filled with so much bullshit, I have to do an entire segue just to explain it.